So gonna do a little bit of street pop or walking around. It's a pretty overcast day, but I need to get my my credit for walking, so we'll just go ahead and get a little outdoor walk in using my Apple Watch here, and we'll go ahead and get started. I brought with me today the Canon R6 Mark II with the 24-105. And you flip that around this way, and yeah, it's a pretty overcast day. It's kind of windy, kind of humid, but I think it'll be good. So I see my first photo, which is why I'm standing in this area, and this is just the entrance to the walking area. And I kind of like the idea of this sign, just to get, you know, the creative juices flowing. I'm going to go ahead and snap a photo of this particular sign, and using a 24-105 really lets you zoom in, and I'm pretty close to the sign, but this just gives me something to kind of start the day off with. And I'll walk in just a little bit more. You'll see the photos pop up on screen as well. Now, what I'm also kind of liking is the barriers right here in front of this walking path, right? Like I said, I just started. But I don't really care for that sign over there. That's to the left, the little yellow sign. I don't know how well that's coming through on the GoPro. But what I'm gonna do is see if I can get low and take this photo from a different angle. So if the GoPro doesn't capture what I'm actually looking at, then you'll see the photo. But I do want to focus in on the center. I think these are called star barricades, but don't quote me on that. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more, really kind of cropping in and getting a look that I want. Now, as far as camera settings go, I'm looking at a, here, I'll do it like that so you can see. So I'm at 1/640th of a second, f4, and then ISO auto. I'm also using my exposure compensation to kind of underexpose the image. I like darker photos whenever I do walking around, running gun, mostly because I want to preserve highlights. But now that I think about it, since today the sky looks like it does, kind of show you with the GoPro there. Since the sky looks like that, I'm not overly concerned about overexposed images. So I'm actually going to make my exposure compensation right down the middle. We'll see how that works out. I normally like 1/3 of a stop underexposed, and it's actually right around noon. It's 12:10 at the time that I'm recording, and this is when you should be getting high contrasty images. But the problem is, since it's so overcast, I'm not getting any contrast, so everything's kind of melancholy. Now, I had a friend of mine who once said, if you get in a day like what it is today, what you can think about doing is photographing your photos, or making black and white photos. So I may actually turn some of these photos into a black and white, and, you know, kind of make that the reality for today. But yeah, just honestly, this is a perfect opportunity to just get out and practice using your camera, getting exposure in circumstances where maybe the light isn't the most amazing. We'll see if we can make an image using what we got here in front of us. So this is not a macro lens, but zooming in to that 104, I think is going to help me, or I'm sorry, 105. I think that's going to help me with creating an image or a look. Maybe go face down right onto this little flower. Now, I have no idea what type of flower this is, so if you know, drop it in the comment section below. That would be amazing. But for me, this is just practice, right? So I'm gonna put this at 85 millimeters, and I am on a full frame camera, and I'm just gonna try and put this on the right third, but the wind is blowing it, and I'm gonna just snap the photo. Again, I'm shooting at a pretty high shutter speed, but because these are moving so much, I'm gonna have to increase that shutter speed probably to about 12/50th of a second. I'm gonna just put it like that. I don't know if that's the proper way of saying it. And of course, there's a mild dude on a motorcycle here, and I'm just gonna try and capture this image, and I think I'm getting what I want. I'll have to see what happens when I put it into the computer, but what I like to do when I get to segments like this is really take my time, you know, because if you rush, there's like this little worm, it looks like, that is crawling on here. And I know that I don't have my macro lens with me, but if I put this at 105, there's a bunch of motorcycles going, like I am in the area that I'm in is surrounded by roads. So there's a road over here that I'm right next to. So I apologize if the audio, I capture these images. So just bear with me as I try to make an image with these flowers that I am presented with. Now, because this isn't a macro lens, it's telling me, it's not letting me focus that close. So what I'm gonna do is just back up, and I'm probably going to have to crop this in post. Now, I have one other trick that I can try here. So my camera, hopefully this is coming through, I have a button right here that allows me to zoom in to 1.6. Now, the trade-off with that is it reduces the file size drastically, and they're not really good images, but in a pinch, if you absolutely need to get that 1.6 crop, you can do it. If you have the Canon series cameras, all you have to do to get to that point is hit the little Q menu, and then where it says full, you'll tap there, and then you'll hit 1.6 crop. So it's essentially turning your full frame camera into a crop censored camera. Now, it's not perfect. I don't really care for the image quality out of it, but I really do want to capture this little fella that's on the inside. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like I don't know, it's like a really tiny worm, and it's kind of cool. So let me see if I can capture that. It's really blurry. All right, so I have no idea what these are. I think they look really cool, and so I'm gonna photograph them and just take a little bit of time finding something that would be photogenic, which I think this one right here will work out just fine. And then there's also one up here as well. So I'll capture these two and see what we get. Now, this one, I'm going to actually boost my exposure compensation. And this is kind of just how I work. And I'll also bring down my shutter speed because this isn't getting as much wind. It's not gonna blow away all crazy. And I kind of want that background to be bright and blown out. So there's like that separation, contrast. I know that kind of goes against what we're used to hearing about when it comes to photography, that the subject should be brighter. But, you know, my artistic approach to this is these are already dark and pretty drastic colors. It's a red on a green, and those are complementary colors. So there's already some good theory that's going on here. And moral of the story, I think that this is just going to work out fine. And I'll see if I could do something with these leaves in the foreground and the subject in the background there. You know, of course, the wind decides to come along right now. And, you know, these are just fun shots. My wife might like them. I'm just doing it for the sake of photographing. But what I'm also doing is there's a second little stem that's sticking out up there. And by coming this direction, shooting low, I'm cutting out that particular one in the background. So it looks like there's only one in the frame when I photograph it. Even though you can kind of see the remnants of the other one. And when the wind blows pretty hard like it just did, it reveals everything. So you just got to take some time, sit in the area and work the spot, and you'll eventually get something I think that can be used, useful or used. What I'm noticing on the back of the camera is the photo itself, it is not very sharp. And that's because we're using a shallow depth of field. So what I'm going to do is move this up to f8. And I'm going to snap a few more photos because I do want more of this plant in focus, which I think this is yielding what I'm really going after. So I'm going to crop a little bit tighter in by zooming the lens. And I think I got some photos. I'll show those up on the screen. So now, after you get those photos, you got to make sure to reset your aperture, because I do want to shoot mostly at f4 today. Be a photo here. I like the converging lines of the walls to each side of the trench as you go down into it. So if you get low, and I'll pull out my screen here, you can really get a pretty cool shot. You know, photography is all about angles, and I really like that idea. Now I'm gonna walk down here and see if I can make a shot with these sandbags that are over here along the trench, and then also looking off into the distance, I wonder if I can make something with the American flag that's kind of framed within a frame. So let's take a look here. And I'm zoomed out too far because 24 millimeters just won't do it. But I could do something like that. And then maybe need to bring down my exposure compensation. The sky is so bright that it is blowing out everything. But like I mentioned before, let me come back up here a little bit. Yeah, hopefully that's showing up on the GoPro. But like I mentioned before, down here there's all of these sandbags, and I kind of want to make an image using the and fading it out into the distance. So you're gonna see if I could do that. And I'll zoom out just a touch. I'm just gonna set my camera on the trench here, and just a little over 1/3 into the photo is where I'm gonna set my focusing point. And I'm shooting at f4, 1/500th of a second, and the ISO is metering at 320. So again, I'm shooting ISO auto, and I know that I can recall some of this information. My goal here is really just not to blow out the highlights. So I'm gonna actually recover some of those highlights by moving my exposure compensation down and then recapturing the image. So that way it's a little bit darker. I think that that's gonna come out the way that I want it to. I kind of want to make something of the texture of this particular walking area. And I've been shooting a lot of vertical shots. So I'm gonna shoot a horizontal shot, and I'm gonna zoom. I'm using a I'm at 50 millimeters, getting down really low here. And I kind of want to cut the sky out, so, but I need to show the top of it for relevance to the photo. So maybe something like that. Here's a cool little way to look through, and you know, I'm gonna put a photo up on the screen of what it would look like. Now that's mostly sandbag, so we'll zoom this out just a touch, and I need to expose that a little bit better. So we'll try this like so. All right, so you can see the barbed wire through there. You can see the barbed wire through there, as well as on the other side, some of the other trees. So what I'm gonna do is make a photo of these particular signs here, because I think they're kind of cool. They tell a story, and that's all that you're ever really trying to do when you photograph, is tell a story. So maybe do something like that, where I zoom out, and you know, maybe I'll do a sky replacement. You know, we'll see what happens with that. I don't know how well this is going to come out, but I take the photo anyway, because you never know how a photo is really going to come out. This has a little sign over it, and I guess I could stop and read through some of these posters, but my goal today was really just to, one, get out of the house and walk. These look like some refortified type of trench barriers. The light just isn't that great. Now that's kind of a eerie looking thing. I don't think I've ever been here where this door was open, and I imagine this is one of those underground bunkers that would have been built. I should probably know a little bit more about history, but you know what, for the sake of the video, I'm gonna walk in here. I've never been in here before, so I have no idea what to expect. So hopefully this works out. Now, assuming the GoPro's picking this up, there's this light that's like coming through the little vents here, which is actually kind of cool. So I'm gonna see if I can make a photo of that happening, and it has to be a little bit lower. I think that'll work. Maybe lower. Never afraid to get low. Yeah, okay. I kind of like that. So we'll walk through here and see what's on the other side, which I think it leads us to that bunker. Oh, yeah, so there is, it's a really dark spot. I'm not going in there. We're gonna go ahead and move back out. And yes, I am crouching down because this is a very tight and narrow space to kind of walk through. Now, this is a piece of artillery equipment. I don't know much about it, so I'm not gonna say anything other than the fact that I know that it's artillery. And you know what? I'm gonna do a horizontal shot of it because I want to get all of it in here. And there's signs on the right-hand side there that kind of make it not as interesting. So I'm just gonna step over to the side and I'm gonna crop out, but I'm also going to bring down my exposure compensation. And I'm using this front leg, or at least what I'm gonna call the front leg, but I'm using this leg here to lead me into the artillery piece, and everything else is not very important. So this is gonna be a pretty tight cropped image, and I am shooting this in portrait mode or orientation, and I'm just gonna focus right up into the artillery piece and, you know, really getting some detailed shots. I didn't talk about that earlier, but because the light is so evenly dispersed, I'm not going to cast a shadow, which makes it so much easier to grab detailed shots. The challenge here is you got to know what you're actually photographing to know if you're getting good details. So I'm just going to demonstrate that this aspect right here, maybe this is a really good detailed type of thing to get photos of. So I like to do it in kind of a cross orientation. So I go above, center mass, and below, and then above, center mass, and below from the left side, above, center mass, and below from the right side. So it would look something like this. And I'm zoomed in right now at 50 millimeters because these are detail shots. So above, and then I'll zoom out just a touch and bring down my camera. And this is about the center mass shot. And it doesn't always work, right? Which is why I take multiple angles. And then I'll do the below, and that gets the job done there. And then what I do is I step over to the side, and then I do the same thing. So it's above, center mass, and then below. And the character of the things that you photograph, they change as you move around. So to get the last angle side, I'm gonna come over here, then I'm gonna go, well, you know, you gotta get your cropping or your framing the way that you want it to be. But that's above, and then I'll back that off a little bit, and we'll do a center mass and pop that out for a second, and then another one below. So whenever you're working detailed shots, move around your subject and photograph it from different angles. Now, I am liking the framing of the flag between the tree branches here. So I'm gonna find a way to zoom in and capture that. Now, it looks extremely small in the frame, but it looks so much larger in like the way that I'm seeing it with my normal or with my natural eye. So what I'm gonna do is use that zooming trick to go 1.6. I know that I'm gonna lose some quality, but it gets me closer to the flag and it makes the photo look a little bit different. So as I am zoomed in at 105 millimeters, I'm just gonna take a couple frames here, and I will show these images side by side so you can see the difference between using the 1.6 crop and then using the full frame, which those are going to be very different, right? The full frame is going to give me a much broader depth of field, whereas the 1.6 is going to crop in less depth of field, and it's also a much more degraded image. Found value in the content, smash the like button. If you are new to the channel and you want to see more content, then smash that subscribe button. I got content that comes out regularly, and I'd love to have you here. Ask any questions down below. And until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.